Welcome to episode 1, part B of the Beyond Consent project. When we spoke to young people about respect and consent, the theme of safety was common, although it was spoken in a different context. This part focuses on the theme of safety in relation to consent.
Consent is something, like your power to consent is something that you retain, that you can at any time, you don't give someone your consent and then they hold it until, for the duration of the thing you've consented to. You are in a state of consenting until you decide not to be in a state of consenting. And it's entirely internal to you.
And that's like a mutual understanding or a yes or no, like a verbal, concise thing. And it's really tough.
For me, I think it'd be the comfortable, and I think trying to read each other's, expressions and, body, and the, how your body is actually feeling, if they're tense or if they're relaxed, and their facial expressions. I think with their emotions, I think both ways, and sometimes it can be hard, and because we haven't talked about it, I don't really learn the difference. I think it's such a unknown kind of thing. People, they talk about consent, but then they also don't actually do the details of what it actually is.
That, I know that this topic was so different, in the past, years and years ago. It probably would have been much simpler, but that's not necessarily a good thing.
It's kind of that assumed thing of consent isn't necessary because it's the ownership thing. And I feel like, again, it's a very old way of looking at things, but I feel like that's kind of where this idea of consent, almost up until relatively recently, consent wasn't as big a deal because it was just always assumed that it had to be a yes.
I feel like the only thing that's emphasised in school or whatever is no means no, and that's it.
Yeah, it was more about safe sex, not getting a disease and getting not getting pregnant.
You can't respond in a way that's aggressive without risk of that person being aggressive.
Well, it's also on one hand, he was clearly drunk, so maybe he wouldn't have been doing the same thing if he was sober. But then at the same time, he's drunk, you don't know what he's capable of in a normal scenario, let alone when he's drunk and loses sight of maybe what's good and bad or what's right and wrong, that kind of thing. You just don't know. That's awful.
I really liked unpacking the difference between flirtatiousness and sexual harassment, just because I feel like it is something that can be perceived as a bit of a grey area. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it shouldn't be.
I feel like we should talk about consent way more because it's actually so important, and girls shouldn't be feeling like boys can do stuff or we're vulnerable because that's not fair.